we have another special guest from the Swedish People's Party. And she's extra special because she usually says that she speaks only Finnish 100%. And that should not be a reason to be a representative of the Swedish People's Party. And we will hear why and hear more about her story that I'm very curious about soon. She is the city councillor of Espoo City, and she is none other than Päivi Puntila. Welcome to the show, Päivi. Nice to have you here.
Thank you, Joni. Good to be here. Thanks.
Excellent to have you here, and I'm very excited to hear about your story, because I want to first recall our first meeting when I first met you, which incurred a very interesting conversation about languages, because you were giving the presentation in Finnish to a mostly Swedish-speaking crowd, and your presentation was in Finnish, English and Swedish. And then I had to raise my hand and ask a couple of questions about languages and then communication in general. And I think that's a topic that we can talk about today. But before that, I would like to hear your story from maybe your university times. If you want to take us back to tell us a little bit, who are you and where do you come from?
Okay. Well, going back to the university times is about 100 years ago. So
Not really.
So I actually used to study in several different universities. I started at the business school, which was at the time in Helsinki downtown, really nice for students. And I studied business and economics. And then a year after that, I actually started here in Otaniemi to study technology. I was always a wannabe architect, but then I tried twice to get to the department, but I couldn't. So at the high school, I didn't have physics. I did have advanced mathematics, but in order to go to the engineering side, you have to have physics. So I went to the kind of evening high school for a year to study the advanced physics, and then I applied for the engineering side. So okay. I studied also civil engineering, and then later, when my daughter was born, I actually went to the art school, so the School of Art and Design, and have my master's degree from there as well.
Wow, so you actually have a very impressive background studying quite a lot, and you also have a very impressive career after studies. So if you want to take us back to your early career, what have you worked with and what's your experience from work life before we come into your interest in politics?
Well, I don't think it's very impressive. But I actually started at the time when the whole e-commerce came in. So I started at the e-commerce company, which was actually the headquarters in London, and it was very international. It was a big
thing at the time. I was living in London at the time when it was a huge thing.
It was
Let's
huge.
buy it.
Let's buy it.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a huge thing. So I was the marketing manager for Finland, and we tried to launch it, but then unfortunately, 2 years after that, it was put into a package, and it still kind of lived for a while in Germany and the UK, but the Nordics was shut down. But Sweden was a big thing in the e-commerce at the time. And after that, I was at a media, I was Kiss FM, which is a radio station. So I was over there producing content and so. And then after that, I've been over 20 years at a very international technology company called Trimble. We do 3D building information modeling software. So been there in different roles, and at the moment leading a team for business development.
Excellent. And you've lived abroad also. If you can tell us a little bit about your roots, like where you are from in Finland, and then what, let's say, cultures, countries you've been in contact with from the study life to your career and until now.
Yeah. Well, my story in Finland is very boring. I was born in Helsinki, and then my parents wanted to go a bit more countryside at the time, so they moved to Espoo, and they built a house with my godfather and his family where I'm actually living at the moment. So when my parents didn't want to take care of the yard anymore, so they moved to Tapiola, and I took over, and so that's where I live at the moment in Mankkaa. But then I've been living in Holland, which is very near to my heart. So I have a small piece of Dutch in me, and I speak Dutch. And then I studied in the U.S. as well. So I studied in Indiana University in Bloomington, which was a great experience living in the dorm, and yeah, very nice.
Fantastic. So would you say that you also lived the Finnish dream, or was it like your parents? I mean, when I grew up, my grandfather, he built our summer cottage, and it was kind of, as I remember, the thing that you had to build your own house to become a man in Finland. I mean, growing up in Sweden and spending a lot of my childhood also in Finland, I had this Swedish dream and a Finnish dream, and then you have all kinds of different dreams popping up and developing. And I see also that you then had maybe a larger house. I usually also use this metaphor that wherever I've lived or wherever I've been connected to a culture, that becomes like a new room in my house. So everything is like my house. So for me, Finland and Sweden, that's the same place. So it's like just different rooms of my house. And then when I've lived abroad in other countries, that becomes another kind of room in my house. Do you identify with that kind of metaphor, or how would you say that you have developed being also living and studying other countries? How do you see your dream developing and your, let's say, identity being first Finnish speaker and then learning other languages, and now, as I know, you study Swedish in Finland. So
yeah, of course. And I actually, my Swedish was much better when I went to Holland. So I actually met another Finnish girl who was also going to Holland, and we spoke Swedish together because she was living in Lauttasaari, but couldn't speak Finnish. So we spoke Swedish when we left. But then both of us, we learned Dutch. She learned Dutch very easily because there's a lot of similarities between these two languages. And we're still friends. We speak Dutch. Two Finnish girls, we speak Dutch together.
What age were you when you learned Dutch?
I was 18.
Okay.
And I went to school over there. I didn't even know whether the class was history or biology. I didn't understand a word. But after 6 months, I woke up understanding that I was dreaming in Dutch. So when we think about foreigners coming to Finland and the kids learning languages, I am so convinced that when they are put kind of into the water, they learn quickly. They learn a lot of languages quite quickly. So that's definitely the best way to get friends, to be part of the community. So that's really important. So I've experienced it myself.
So, and then if you go to your personal, let's say, vision or goals, connecting different countries, cultures, nationalities, and now being based in Finland as a political candidate and a political representative, what are the key issues that you think are important right now in Finland, let's say on a general level?
I would really say that integration politics, in Espoo we have at the moment 25% coming outside of Finland, mastering another language than Swedish or Finnish. I think that politics will be one of the most important parts of politics in the future, especially in Espoo, because our population is growing. Our residents are more and more from outside of Finland, and we really need to make sure that they feel the belonging and inclusiveness.
And have you seen any good examples that you would like to highlight, that this is the way to go, if you focus on that first?
I think those are quite normal, practical things. Like my son plays football, and in the football teams you see a lot of little boys and girls that do not speak Finnish at the moment when they start. but they're quite quickly in the teams, and at school the same thing. So children are quite easy. I think if we just allow them to kind of swim in the language path.
Yeah. And what about older people, like adults and older students?
Well, we have at the City Council, we've had one initiative as a suggestion to form these kind of mentoring families, so that the Finnish, because sometimes I also work with a lot of foreigners in my company. We have, I don't know, like half of our employees or even more are from all kinds of, from all over the world. And a lot of people say that they don't have any local friends. And that's, I think, is sad. That when, I think it's a lot about we kind of welcoming people and allowing people to be there. And this initiative of having a mentor family where the families get together and they learn about, and it's not just teaching the Finnish culture, but it's also learning from that other culture.
Yes.
So I've actually had 2 exchange students myself living in our family.
Okay.
I call them my bonus child,
Okay.
my bonus children. I have a girl from Malaysia, and she came to Finland. She, of course, Malaysia, the official language is English, so it was easy for her. She tried to learn some Finnish. She went to Finnish school, and was really interesting to learn how school system works in Malaysia. All types of cultural things, their festivities. And after that, last year, we had a girl from Japan. And that was really, she's very dear to me, and both of them.
Fantastic. That's a very good example, like families opening up and also building communities that are more, let's say, welcoming, so that we can also not only teach, but starting by teaching, by showing and welcoming and inviting, but then also learning from others, so that we grow also and maybe remember things that we might have lost. If we look at how Finland was 100 years ago when my grandmother was a child, we were, well, what I understand, maybe a more open society. Just, I mean, not talking about international people, but talking to neighbors, like Finnish people not talking to each other, living next to each other.
Yes.
It's a very strange phenomenon when you come from another country, even when you come from Sweden. So my mother is a good example, who migrated from Finland to Sweden just before I was born, and then she came back. And then she had a problem reintegrating in Finland, although she was missing the Finnish language so much in Sweden. And being able to celebrate the Finnish hockey game winning against Sweden, she missed doing that with other Finnish people.
Yeah.
So although she had missed a lot of things, she realized that there was a lot of things that she was struggling with when it comes to these kind of things, the social aspect. And that's also something that I think we should make everyone understand, that it has nothing to do with individuals in many cases, just that there's no need for many people here to speak to other people, to be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Whereas people might think that they are depressed if they don't like me or something.
That's I know some colleagues that came from the US and they stayed here for a meeting for a week, and then in the morning they went jogging from the hotel, and they were saying hi to everybody, and then nobody's saying hi, and everybody's just looking at it, who's that crazy?
Yeah.
And then she was really surprised that, don't you just say hi to each other? I was like, well, when you go outside of the big cities, then perhaps yes. But here we are quite reserved. Even neighbors don't necessarily say hi to each other, which is very sad. I think that's a culture that we should kind of...
It's very strange. It doesn't feel human even to me, because my grandmother, when she was outside shopping, like in the grocery store, she always talked to everyone. And when I was younger, I remember that very clearly. We went to the grocery store together a lot, and she was just talking about the vegetables and then talking to everyone there at the vegetable place. And then later, I never saw that happen. So now when I don't see that happen, that people don't talk to each other in the grocery store if they don't know each other. So
that's a pity.
It's sad, and I think that now when we get stuck with technology more and more, we communicate more through the screens. Like even with our family members who are upstairs, we WhatsApp them from downstairs if we want to say something instead of talking to each other. So I think that's not human, and we should not really celebrate that this is the Finnish way, because it hasn't always been.
Yeah,
so.
That's true. I live on a street where people know each other quite well, but even us, because of the weather that we have and the season, so after October it starts getting really dark, and then people tend to stay more inside, and you don't really see unless you have a dog. And then we always laugh that, well, in April, May, these white ghosts come out from the houses and start saying and talking to each other. Yeah. So that's perhaps also the kind of the climate where we are is it doesn't really help us to be outside.
Yeah, because then in the springtime, summertime, everyone comes out and they're very social and very happy, very talkative. So that's true. But I think maybe we all need to get a dog to become social. Yeah. I think, and also I know that from the new education, not new anymore, but the education reform of the national learning curriculum since 2014, starting to take effect in 2016. We started putting or emphasizing skills such as social skills, communication skills, and similar, let's say, skills development in school rather than only subject memorization. And that we are aware of this, that we need to, let's say, develop social skills, communication skills, and all these other skills, life skills like critical thinking skills, creativity skills, and all these things that the human being needs to be a human being, basically. So we don't need to calculate mathematics like a machine. A machine can do that for us. But there's a lot of things that machines cannot do for us. And we should celebrate those and also learn from those cultures that still have very strong communities, social communities, and celebrate these things. And I think it's not only about a language barrier, but it is also a language barrier that makes it so that maybe we don't talk to strangers who are from other countries easily. But what do you see if we try to transition from the language barrier? What can we do first with the language to make sure that everyone learns Finnish and Swedish and English? I mean, for me, it's very basic that everyone should speak Finnish, Swedish, and English here. And then if you have another language from your home country, that's a bonus. I mean, then you already have a fourth language or a third language. How do you see that can help us forward?
Yeah, I don't think there's any straightforward way to do it, but we also need to take into account that people come from very different backgrounds. Like in some cases, people don't even know how to read and write, but they are very much with their own mother tongue. How can we have those children at the daycare? Help the children to be integrated, to learn the languages, but at the same time, make sure that the parents are not afraid that their own culture is lost. Because if I think about myself, if I would go to another country with my family, I would, of course, want to teach my culture and my mother tongue. Kind of also considering the other aspect from them.
I was going to ask about the culture as a second question, but the first question, I think, if we by law have a language that you need to manage to be able to study, because the studies are in that language, and then we can talk about companies that might enforce one language that is local to be able to get hired, and some things that we can do regulate by law, but then some things that we cannot maybe regulate by law, which is the culture, that is maybe a broader thing. How do we use these interests from, let's say, families and communities to learn from other cultures, and also have culture and, let's say, as you mentioned with the football, free time interests, sports, other activities that are not, let's say, structured always as a way of integrating without maybe emphasizing the language per se. So I think the language is one thing. You can always study the language, learn the language, and I think also it might be a responsibility when you travel to another country that, of course, you should learn the language of that country. So that's like a mentality that I think we should try to educate around if you don't have it already. Because I have traveled abroad and seen it as my number one thing to learn the local language. Because otherwise, how could I feel at home in that country?
Yeah.
It's very logical for me, but for some people it might not be. But then the culture, like, okay, how do you learn the language? It can be through other means that you don't have to have the focus too much emphasized on the language in separation of the broader picture.
Yeah. I think, like said before, children are easier because they learn quickly. At schools, we have means to take them through the language paths to teach them the language, and they learn by doing, by being in the class, by having hobbies and so on. I think adults might be the challenge, and then sometimes when people come to work here, they don't think that they need Finnish or Swedish because their first idea is not to stay forever. They might want to stay just 2 years, 3 years, and you can manage with English. So that's one thing. But when they make the decision that, hey, I actually like this is my new home country, then as an adult, it's not that easy to learn neither language. Swedish and Finnish both. Swedish may be a bit easier, but because when you're doing your profession, you want to be understood. It's easier to speak language that everybody understands and you can express yourself. And it's the threshold to start speaking Finnish or Swedish is very high. You probably feel yourself a bit stupid as well, which is understandable. But I think Finnish people should have a different attitude as well. When I'm at school, I speak this bad English. Everybody speaks bad English at work because we are all not having...
but you don't speak bad English and you speak fantastic English. And in general, compared to internationals who have problems learning English as a second language also, in the Nordics, we speak excellent English compared to, let's say, most of the non-speaking, let's say, English first speaking population.
Yeah, but maybe my point was that I think Finnish people should allow people to speak bad Finnish, bad Swedish, because that's the way how you learn.
Yeah.
Putting the Finnish words here and there, and then letting people to continue in Finnish when they started, and not switch immediately to English when you realize that it's not the person's mother tongue.
Yeah, that's tricky. That's tricky because if you have another language that both manage, which usually is English, then it's very difficult not to speak English.
Yeah, and people learn by speaking. That's the only way to learn.
Yeah, but as I say to my wife always, or a lot of Spanish-speaking people, that say that you want to speak either in Finnish or in Spanish, like your own language. That English should not be an option if you're trying to learn Finnish or Swedish. Yeah. So that brings me to ask about your personal motivations to learn Swedish now as an adult. So talking about an adult who's motivated to learn Swedish, which is one of the 4 official languages in Finland that you might want to come back to. You had it when you were 18 to a higher level, and now you're studying it, learning it, want to learn it. And so why, when it's not really needed for you, but
I think it's actually needed. Well, for me, of course, it's needed. But I think, how would I say, Finnish speakers often forget how many new things are allowed if you can speak Swedish. I'm happy to have now a president that speaks a lot of languages, but especially like as a mother tongue Swedish, but perfect Finnish. I think just being a dual, dual language, like kaksikielinen.
Yeah, bilingual.
Bilingual,
Yeah, or multilingual,
so,
yeah.
totally bilingual. So I think that is a good, hopefully. And that now we have Kai.
That's a curious phenomenon. I have to study that and really.
It is so
how is
nice.
it possible that is happening? I'm very excited about that as well.
I'm so happy now that people are actually accepting a Swedish song and being proud that it's representing Sweden, but it's from Finland.
Yeah.
And those type of phenomenons hopefully kind of build a positive attitude towards two national languages.
So we will get the Gulf of Kai coming.
Yes.
Will we, as Anders proposed?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a serious proposal, but very interesting because the Nordic collaboration is fantastic. I think the Swedish-Finnish collaboration should be strengthened. So much we can learn from each other. We have great things in Sweden and we have great things in Finland, and we complement each other quite well when we collaborate. And then it's also nice to be competing on the ice hockey ring also whenever we can. But so great. So I think it's also a good example of someone who's actually interested in learning the language. Well, maybe also because you are very active in the Swedish People's Party, where there's a lot of Swedish speakers who might not speak Finnish that well in Finland. So it's an added value, of course, for you to speak.
Yes,
also
and I think that because
Swedish.
all Finnish people have it at school, so pakkoruotsi.
We should change that term and enable it into because it's forced Swedish, and usually it's enforced when you don't want to study it. And as I've said before, that in my son's school, it comes when you're in 6th grade. When you're already studying 3-4 languages, why should you study Swedish when you don't know anyone who speaks it? As in my son's case, the only one he knows who speaks Swedish in his community is his father. So that will, of course, not help his friends to learn Swedish from grade 6. And grade 4, I don't know if that's any helpful, like the school as the only place where you learn a language. I don't think that's a good solution. But let me go more into your personal political candidature. So what are you running for? What's important for you personally right now as a political candidate for these 2 elections that we have coming up? So please, you have 3 points in specific on your website, if you would like to summarize, and then we can go deeper into all of them.
Well, I've been interested in politics for I don't know, always. When I was studying at the university, there was this new party which was more towards liberal attitudes, and it was called Nuorsuomalaiset. And I joined the party with a lot of other students as well, and was very excited. But then unfortunately the party kind of vanished at some point. But then 9 years ago, Anders Adlercreutz called me, and we knew from the past because we've both been as an exchange student abroad. And he started to convince me, and of course the Swedish-speaking party. And my first reaction was like, well, I don't speak Swedish, so forget it. Definitely not my thing. You guys need Swedish speakers. And then he tried to convince again, and at the time I said that, well, I'll think about it, but not now. And then 4 years ago, I was approached by him again, and I actually was already very positively thinking about it by following the party and its politics for the years, during the years. And then I actually still was doubting whether a purely Finnish speaker would be welcomed. And I studied all the party programs of all the parties in Finland. I used to vote maybe a lot of Kokoomus or maybe the Greens. And I read the party programs and I thought, well, there is no other choice. So I'm going to go. I need to be bold because I know that all the meetings will be in Swedish. So I need to be bold. I need to learn Swedish, but this is a party that applies with my values, and I'm a big value person. I think if my values are not aligned with my company that I work for, or for the political party that I'm working for, I can't do the job. And RKP is really my value matches totally 100%. So it was an easy choice.
Amazing. So that's very interesting because, I just have to mention the language thing because I'm kind of very interested in languages. So for me, it was very curious because I've been living like 13 years in Finland, speaking only Finnish, because of course I speak Finnish in Finland, until I come to one of the first meetings of the Swedish People's Party, where I find, let's say, for the first time, like a community of only Swedish speakers, except these special hubs where I've been, let's say, working with Hanken and so on. And for me, that was a new thing. And then like, okay, now I speak only Swedish from now on. And then in one of the first meetings, you are the presenter. And then I speak only Finnish in the entire, let's say, public scenario there where we speak about languages. And I saw that the main problem was not that you didn't speak Swedish, but that everyone else did not speak Finnish when you were speaking Finnish. And most people replied to you in Swedish, although you understand. So it was an interesting thing when you speak Swedish and Finnish in the same conversation. So I usually have one conversation in one language and the same language with one person. And then if it's another person who prefers another language, then I switch language and have the complete conversation in the other language. So I felt rather than a lack in your Swedish speaking skills, which is I knew from forever since I was a baby, all my Finnish family speaks only Finnish, that if you live in Finland, of course you should speak Finnish first. Although the Swedish-speaking population have maybe not that perspective, of course, because they grew up speaking only Swedish in their communities. But if you look at the volume, I mean, as I've been saying to Finnish people, Sweden is just next doors. You will have a lot of opportunities if you speak Swedish. But then if you speak Swedish in Finland, Finland is your country, and most of the people in Finland speak Finnish. So it's very strange that you, especially as a modern citizen nowadays in a global world, do not learn the other, that for many people is the first language, which is Finnish. So now I'm kind of in this scenario where I decided also, like in this podcast, it's in English and Spanish, because I started in Spanish. I'm addressing the Spanish-speaking population in the world, trying to highlight best case scenarios and things to learn about from Finland to the Spanish-speaking world, which is kind of my larger community. But then here now I'm speaking both Swedish, and then suddenly I'm also speaking Finnish in some interviews. Because that's the only language or the best language to be spoken. So I see it still language as only a tool, and that's kind of not where we should get stuck, although I'm getting stuck in it now talking about it, but it's kind of where we are at the moment. We have to surpass this language question and get to the values. So communication, understanding each other, and then learning from each other. And then what are, in your case, then your top values, let's say, regarding the party, and those that you stand for, let's say, that you can actually execute on as a politician, why you want people to vote for you?
Okay, let's go to the values. But first, a little bit elaboration regarding the languages, because I think the Swedish-speaking people they know each other very well. So it is a kind of a bubble. They call it bubble themselves. And at the same time, when I was chosen to be a council, I got enough votes, luckily. I also had a colleague who is in the group. She's married with a Swedish speaker, so her Swedish is much better than mine. But I think we brought a little bit new culture to the group, and probably from both sides, we were a little bit afraid how would it turn out to be. But they welcomed us very warmly. And I think at the moment the culture is really nice. So I speak Finnish mainly. Sometimes chit chat, I can say a few words or sentence in Swedish, but I speak Finnish. All the others in the group, they speak Swedish. The meetings are mainly in Swedish, but if I say something, people reply in Swedish to me. And now that we have quite a few candidates speaking English and not Finnish and Swedish at all, then it will be even more interesting to see how that English fits into the meetings and all that. And I'm very grateful to my colleagues in the group because they allow me to speak Finnish, and we've kind of overcome this language wall that there was maybe in the beginning. I'm sure that they were afraid seeing that, wow, there's a Finnish woman joining our group.
Interesting. Okay, so let's go to your top values.
Yeah.
And what are the most important? You have talked a lot of interesting things that are, let's say, very general. But if we try to be specific to you and your campaign, what you feel that you can contribute with first now with these elections coming up?
About the values. So what kind of values are aligned with my values and the party? It's definitely the liberal thinking, equality between all people. It is being on the right-left position on the political scene, and so not too much to the right, not too much to the left, but rather a little bit more to the right than left. So embracing entrepreneurship, embracing the economical market, and then the green values. I think our party has very high, ambitious values towards the green movement and climate change. And then the human aspect. So RKP really stands for the people. It's clear when we talk about services that need to be near people. We talk about people being able to cope with difficult phases in life, but it's very much the humanity that I can see. Money gives, or economics gives you a cake, and you can't spend more than you have, but it's not the driving force. The driving force are the services and people. So those are kind of maybe also aligning my values.
Yeah, so if you list the top 3, let's say, areas that you want to focus on, which are they?
Like in my campaign?
Yes.
So because I've worked for construction business and on the technology side for more than 20 years. Of course, construction is very close to my heart. I see how the new neighborhoods are built at the moment, and I would like to see more diverse neighborhoods, which would then help us avoiding segregation. We need to have ownership apartments, rental apartments, low-rise residentials, high-rise residentials, flats, small houses, row houses. Every neighborhood should be diverse, having different, and also to be able to have houses for different phases in life. When you're young with small children, when you're a student, when you grow older and you want a bit smaller, your senior life, and so on. So the diversity in the neighborhoods is very important. I've been striving for so-called townhouses, which are very common in Holland. as well as in London. If people have been to Chelsea, for example, in London, that is the most tensed city part in London. So you can build density. You can build a lot of people in the neighborhood, but still keep the neighborhood nice and more village type. One thing that is important is also that when there are different diversity, we get vitality from entrepreneurship, from community feeling, and then of course I'm very strong to the nearby nature. And regarding the construction, another thing is also creating neighborhoods that can build community feeling with kind of entrepreneurs and shops, smaller shops in the neighborhood, and not just these hyper huge markets where people go by car. And that's, so the construction is one theme. Another theme is this whole community feeling and vitality. So bringing, because our unemployment rate at the moment in Espoo is very sad, 10.9, and actually among people coming outside of Finland, it's 21%. So it is critical. And in order to have more jobs, we need more companies. We need more entrepreneurs. We need to, as a city, we need to support and attract companies to Espoo. We need to give possibilities and opportunities to set up your company, how to handle the regulations and so on. So that is very important. And then how to integrate foreigners in Finnish or Swedish. So at schools in Espoo, in some schools we have about 40% foreigners on the Finnish-speaking side. But on the Swedish-speaking side, it might be 2 or 3%. So we should really try to integrate actively to Swedish as well. I think it benefits both Swedish speakers and Finnish speakers. And so that's one thing regarding my kind of community and vitality theme. The third theme is then youth and how to support families. Every single child should have a hobby. We should support them to find their passion and have friends through hobbies. But then one thing that is really critical at the moment with youth is the feelings of loneliness. Probably bullying, for example, at schools is very different than it was in the early days. It is more leaving people outside from the group work, from pair work, then leaving outside from the social media. So that those feelings of loneliness are critically high among youth in Finland. So as a city, and because education is a big part of the city at the moment, because the healthcare is in the county, we really need to find new ways. How can we help youth feeling that community and leaving mobile phones outside from the schoolwork, from the classes, and then because we have a lot of youth, we still haven't covered pandemia or other, I don't know even if the youth is feeling anxiety because of pandemia time. Is it just because of the pressure that they have at school? Is it social media? Whatever it is, but a lot of the times the youth, I know from experience with my own daughter, the anxiety and the level of bad feelings and that comes out when it's really too bad. So a lot of young teenagers, they keep it inside until it's too bad, and then they come out. and we don't have enough tools and help that the family can get. So we need to find easier way to find help through one window and quickly, because the worries that the families have in those cases is vast.
Yes. You have 3 children, right?
Yes.
How old are they now?
I have 3 children. So my daughter is 23, my son is 21, and then I have my little one who's 13.
Okay, fantastic. Because regarding this anxious point, there's a book that came out last year called The Anxious Generation. I talk about it nowadays, but there's also like a lot of points that we should go into detail to check like why things are the way they are, and what is the real problem, and how could we avoid the problem, and maybe not just ignore the problem, prohibit phones, for example, and maybe rather educate around things, and maybe not allow noise and bad stuff being in the phone, and maybe have more control over what happens in the digital world, and let people more freely play outside. And
Yes.
I think this youth topic is very interesting, and I would very much like to go deeper into this, into a second conversation possibly. And all of these 3 main topics I would like to learn much more about. And where can people learn more about your campaign? You have Päivi Puntila, päivipuntila.fi. Fantastic. So go and check out päivipuntila.fi and learn more about your campaign and your values, and especially these 3 points that you promote now. And then maybe we will hear more details about how this will take place. And I will follow your campaign very closely.
I will follow your campaign very closely.
Thank you. Thank you. I will try to highlight best case practices. And you, Päivi, you're my favorite Finnish-speaking person in the Swedish People's Party. So thank you so much for the conversation. Would you like to give a final word to your potential voters, directly to them? A couple of minutes, something that you would like to summarize with. Please
Okay.
direct.
Because we're speaking English, I would like to remind people who are living in Finland that you have a right to vote. So if you have lived in your city or village more than 2 years, you have to go and vote, because that's how you developed your community, and you have opportunities to talk to those councillors that are chosen to the council. And as I always say, I'm there to be the voice for people who voted me. So call, send email, reach out whenever there's something in the neighborhood that you're worried about, you want to ask more, or if you have suggestions what to do at the council, what things could be developed to be better.
Thank you so much, Päivi. And
Thanks.
I hope to continue the conversation soon.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
having me here.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.